Yo, what is good, Jets Nation? Welcome back to Jets Media. This is Richie, and welcome to the next episode of the series here on Jets Media, where we will be breaking down each position group on the New York Jets. As you guys can tell from the title of the video, we'll be breaking down the wide receiver position. Now, I am really excited to break down this position because we got a lot of awesome players at this position group to talk about, whether that's Elijah Moore entering year number 2, the rookie sensation in Garrett Wilson, the veteran Corey Davis, re-signing Braxton Berrios. Is Denzel Mims going to do anything in year number 3? We have a special guest of Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. You guys know him very well. He'll be joining the video to talk about the wide receivers. Before we hop into the video, though, I just want to mention, if you guys are new to Jets Media, help me out. Get me to 12,000 subscribers. So hit that subscribe button if you're indeed new to the channel. And of course, if you enjoy the video, do not forget to thumbs it up. And if you guys want to check me out over on Instagram and Twitter, that is at NYJets_media. With that being said, let's get Ryan in on the show to break down the New York Jets wide receivers heading into training camp. There he is. What's
going up, dude? Thanks for having me on.
Of course, man. I'm doing this series where I'm having a lot of Jets YouTubers around to break down each position group. It was hard for me to decide which YouTuber I want to talk about, what position. So I was like, you know what, Ryan? I'm picking the wide receivers with you. So what's your thoughts of the wide receiver position when you look at this graphic I have right here heading into training camp?
Yeah, it's one of the positions that I feel more comfortable with than I have in quite some time. And I guess I kind of felt that way going into year 2 of Denzel Mims, adding Corey Davis, having Keelan Cole, drafting Elijah Moore. Like, there was an excitement last year to that. But I think this one, after seeing what Elijah Moore can be, seeing Garrett Wilson, the highest drafted wide receiver that we've taken in a very, very long time, come in, Corey Davis coming back after clicking a bit with Zach Wilson early on in the season, and then re-signing Braxton Berrios. Like, this is just like kind of the continuity and the young group that I want to see grow with this team and Zach Wilson overall. So, across the board, this is an exciting position group to get into.
It really is. And you just look at the depth that we have at this position. It gets me really excited. But the one thing that really jumps out the screen to me the most at this position group, Ryan, is the 2 young players in Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. I've been waiting for so long for the New York Jets to draft and develop a wide receiver properly. Now, we don't know what Garrett Wilson is yet, but he's the 10th overall pick. So there's high expectations. What we do know is Elijah Moore. So what's your thoughts of Elijah Moore heading into year number 2 and your overall expectations from him?
This guy has all the makings to be wide receiver 1. There was a lot of talk this offseason of the Jets needing to go out and trade for a wide receiver, go out and draft a big wide receiver. And I definitely wanted a veteran guy to come in via trade or a young buck to come in the first or second round. But Elijah Moore is one of those talents that can absolutely be the number 1 wide receiver. You just see how lethal he is and how the defense has kind of reacted to him shifting different sides of the field. And I think defensive coordinators are keyed in on it. And I think fans, while we haven't seen the stats necessarily explode the way we, expect to see a high draft pick explode, I think we have a lot of upside with Elijah Moore. And I think that year 2 is really going to expose a lot of that. And I think fans are really going to open their eyes.
I genuinely believe if Elijah Moore did not suffer that injury at the end of the season and he played all the way through week 18, his numbers would have been so good to the point where we are like set on him being our number 1 receiver. Because if you look at those 5 games before he got injured, you stretch that out to a 17-game span, Ryan, the numbers are ridiculous. And obviously you look at numbers and you see the pace that's not, legit. You can't really go off of that. But that 5-game sample size that we saw from Elijah Moore as a rookie with multiple quarterbacks, with Joe Flacco, with Mike White, and Zach Wilson, he was putting up real numbers where people that had him in fantasy leagues, he was a must start, and he was winning people some leagues. So I think Elijah Moore in year number 2, his connection with Zach Wilson is legit. He is going to the same year in the system. And like you said, he's a versatile option that can line up on the outside, line up in the slot, and he has number 1 receiver potential written all over him. In today's NFL, you don't need to be that prototypical 6'3" outside receiver to be a number 1. If you're a wide receiver that can create separation, you have that route running ability and being able to create separation in general, you're going to be able to become a number 1 receiver. So my next question to you, if there is a wide receiver on this team to hit that 1,000-yard benchmark, is it Elijah Moore? If not, who else would it be?
Yeah, I think it probably is Elijah Moore. I don't feel super confident that we're going to get a 1,000-yard wide receiver just because of the way this offense is built. They want to run the ball a lot. The tight ends are going to be heavily involved, and we have so many pass catchers at the position. I would be a little surprised if we got one, but I think if we had one wide receiver that was going to do it, it's going to be Elijah Moore, and I think it's going to be in all sorts of fashions. Like I think you'll see the Jets utilize him similarly to how they utilized Braxton Berrios last year, but I think you'll see more of a connection now that Zach has had that off season with Elijah to work with.
Yeah, man. The connection that we saw from Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore at the back end of the season, when he went down with an injury, I was just so upset because I knew how important it was for those two players to get that chemistry in that rookie season. But it's okay. They worked out in the offseason. I'm expecting that chemistry to go into year number 2. Now, when it comes to the rookie in Garrett Wilson, right? He's the 10th overall pick. A lot of people believe he's the best wide receiver to come out of this draft class. So what's your expectations from him as a rookie? Because we can't really expect him to just do Jamar Chase-like things or Justin Jefferson-like things, even though he does have the talent to become a rookie receiver like that. So are you expecting Garrett Wilson to come out of the gate and be on fire, or do you expect him to be a rookie that struggles at first?
I expect of all our rookies, I think Garrett Wilson is going to be one of the ones that struggles the most. And it's not so much that he's a bad player or anything like that. I just think you look at the development of some of the other players, and I think you look at where some targets may be going, and I think you're going to see Corey Davis get a big share. I think you're going to see Berrios. I think you're going to see Elijah Moore, the tight ends. So it wouldn't shock me to see Wilson kind of fourth in that receiver kind of pecking order. Like I'd like to see him reception-wise or like target count similar to Braxton Berrios, like the amount of touches Berrios gets. I'd like to see at least that many for Garrett Wilson because you want to see him sort of hit the ground running because ideally in 2023, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, and these guys are ready and like firing on all cylinders. I want to see all that chemistry happen this year. But I think with Wilson, you're probably looking maybe halfway through the season before you start to see it click.
Yeah, I agree. And if you remember last year, Ryan, Elijah Moore kind of had that same situation. Week number 1, I'm pretty sure he had negative receiving yards. He had 1 reception, and it was like behind the line of scrimmage, and he had a couple drops, right? He wasn't coming out of the gate on fire. It took him a while to adjust, and that's expected as a rookie. So I agree. I feel like Garrett Wilson, he might have a couple flashy plays earlier in the season. He might have a touchdown here and there, but I feel like he's really going to get his rhythm by week 5 and beyond, or around that range, because that's where these rookies really get comfortable, because not everything clicks immediately, because not only do they have to learn the speed of the NFL, but they have to understand the plays. They have to understand where they need to be. The wide receiver position in this scheme is really complicated because a guy like Garrett Wilson is going to be asked to do a lot. He's probably going to be asked to line up all over the field, and he needs to know the plays. He needs to know the verbiage. But at the same time, I think Garrett Wilson is going to be just fine, and Jets fans are going to fall in love with him, and he's going to be a top rookie receiver in the entire NFL. Now, going into Corey Davis is a very interesting player on the New York Jets, because I feel like he gets a lot of hate from Jets fans. I feel like not all of them, but some Jets fans just don't believe in him. They want him traded. They want him gone right now. And I never understood that narrative. Me personally, I feel like Corey Davis could be a very impactful player this season, because if you look at the depth chart right here, he's like the only true veteran that we have. He was a captain last year. He was that guy that people look up to. Elijah Moore look up to Corey Davis, and he was a former first round pick, obviously, and he never lived up to that hype in Tennessee. He has a season in Tennessee where A.J. Brown was next to him. He goes off. The Jets sign him, and don't forget, week number 1 against the Panthers last year, Corey Davis, 2 touchdowns. The first 2 touchdowns Zach Wilson had his career was to Corey Davis. You can tell that Zach Wilson was so comfortable throwing the ball to Corey Davis earlier in the season last year, and then he suffered with drops. He suffered with some injuries, and then went out for the season. So when it comes to Corey Davis entering year number 2 with the New York Jets, do you think he's going to have any impact with Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson next to him, or do you think he's going to have another disappointing season?
No, I think he's poised for a bounce back year. I really do. I think when you look at the beginning of the season last year, Zach Wilson could rely on Corey Davis to be in the spot that he wanted him to be. Now, I just think there was a lot of pressure put on Corey Davis. You look at the lack of tight ends. The running game, didn't quite get going right away because the offensive line was kind of going through a little bit of a change and a growth period there. And Elijah Moore had, as you mentioned, had that little bit of a growing stretch, maybe 6 weeks into the season before we really started to see him click. So Corey Davis, for me, I think he'll be able to take, I don't want to say a step back, but he won't have to have as much pressure on him. And I don't think you'll see the drops that you saw last year. That was kind of the issue that a lot of fans had with him. And I think he's a reliable guy. And I think even when you look at his contract, I want to say he's getting paid $12 or $13 million a year. When you look at what wide receivers are getting, there is no way I'm cutting Corey Davis. This is like a bargain contract for a guy of this caliber.
I couldn't agree more. And I remember when we gave him that contract last year, people was like, "Oh, he's our number one receiver." Well, the reason why he was our number one receiver last year is because we didn't have anybody else, right? We drafted Elijah Moore. We can't just give Elijah Moore that number one receiver role. So Corey Davis was thrown into the number one receiver role. And I think we all knew when we signed him, he's not a traditional number one. He benefits the most. He's a really good number two, could be an elite number three if you're asking me, because if you have Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson getting all the looks, and then it opens up Corey Davis, he's a very reliable veteran that I think Jets fans are going to start to fall in love with this year, because I hear some people saying like, oh, well, his contract, we can get out of it in year number three, which is true, but I'm rooting for Corey Davis have a really good season to the point where we're like, I want Corey Davis back on the team next year, because what's wrong with having depth at the wide receiver position? And that brings me up to the next point, Ryan, is what's your thoughts of the depth at this position? Because I personally feel like this is one of the deepest position groups on the team and probably the deepest wide receiver position in general on the Jets in a long time. So what's your thoughts of the overall depth?
Yeah, the depth feels comfortable for me. Like we got to see Braxton Berrios last year kind of fill into a lot of roles. And I think that gives me a little comfort in both the Elijah Moore category and maybe to an extent the Garrett Wilson category as well. Just a crisp route runner. I think when you look at the top end and the way they're going to use the tight ends too, like not just the wide receiver group being deep, but the weapon group being deep. You have Michael Carter, you have Coleman, you have Hall, you have Conklin and Uzma, and then all these wide receivers as well. So even going down to the fourth, fifth, sixth guy, I don't know how much playing time you're going to be able to see with, these later players. So if someone goes down, you're not left playing, Tariq Black as like your backup option. It's a long shot to get down to that point in the depth chart. So I'm feeling really comfortable with where the Jets depth is at this point in the offseason.
Yeah, I feel like the five receivers are pretty much set heading into training camp, in my opinion. I feel like it's going to be in no particular order. Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios, and Denzel Mims. And then that sixth receiver is a really interesting question. So who do you think is the most likely wide receiver to be that number six receiver that makes the 53-man roster heading into week number one?
So that's kind of tough. And I think that's where a lot of fans start to kind of chime in with, oh, we need to sign a veteran receiver. I've had a few people in my DM saying, hey, what about someone like a Julio Jones or someone like, I don't know, veteran name that just kind of isn't signed yet. And that's not kind of the route I'd want to go here. I feel like Corey Davis can play that veteran role for us. And when I look at this depth chart, I'm thinking Jeff Smith, Montgomery, and Black. Those three are probably not going to make the roster. You're going to see someone with maybe a little more potential than what we've seen the last few years. So someone like Jackson, Abram, or Charles, who can provide something that these other guys can't, because Braxton Berrios is that special teams player. So I don't know if you're necessarily looking for that type of player. I think you might be looking for someone that might be able to help replace maybe a tight end. Like maybe it's a really big bodied guy, like a 6'5" type wide receiver. I don't know. I don't know if there's one that really I don't know if there's one at this point that I see locking down that number 6 spot, but that's the type of mindset that I'm going into. It is something that complements the rest of these guys in a pinch.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's wide open. I don't think any Jets fan can say with confidence they know who the wide receiver six is going to be. The dark horse to make it, in my opinion, is Calvin Jackson. I feel like he's a player that a lot of Jets fans are going to like when we see him at training camp. Undrafted guy. He's just a really fun guy to watch. I watch a lot of his tape, and we got a lot of fun players like all in the bottom of the depth chart that's going to be fighting for that wide receiver 6 spot. So when it comes to other guys that's going to be playing a lot of time with the New York Jets that I feel like a lot of Jets fans should expect him to be utilized way more this year is that Braxton Berrios. So what's your thoughts of Braxton Berrios heading into the season? We extended him. He's with the Jets for 2 more years. We know he's going to provide awesome stuff for special teams and kick return duty and punt returning. But when it comes to the wide receiver position, do you think he's going to be the legit starting slot receiver? Because Jamison Crowder's gone. Garrett Wilson replaced Crowder, but Garrett Wilson's going to be playing all over the place. I feel like Braxton Berrios might have a really big role in the offense this year, more than people might expect.
Yeah, if I had to look at percentage of snaps played by our wide receivers, I would think Berrios is going to be closer to the top because of his play style. Like, I don't think they're going to use Elijah Moore in the slot at all. I mean, occasionally, I think the same thing with Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, those three are probably a little more interchangeable. And I think Barrios might get the benefit of being a different type of gadgety type player that maybe they feel a little more comfortable, sending on a jet sweep. Maybe not, I don't want to say risk his body more, but you don't want to necessarily open up some high draft picks for some really big shots. And I love everything we got from Braxton Berrios last year. The way this guy fought throughout the season when a season was like totally lost, and he comes back to the Jets taking less money than he could have gone, elsewhere. That was the first signal for me that there was sort of a dynamic changing with this Jets locker room. And you kind of heard it a little bit with Quinnen Williams recently with it's not all about the money. And you want to hear guys kind of say that, but to see someone take less to stay with our young quarterback that really gave it his all last season, I think that, sort of makes me feel back to like the Wayne Chrebet era and the, Lavernius Cole, Santana Moss. Like these guys were like kind of gritty. They wanted to be here. It's just, I like it. I like where this room is headed. I like where this offense is headed. And Braxton Berrios is one of the dynamics and personalities that Zach Wilson can kind of jive with that I think brings chemistry to this locker room.
It told me a lot about Joe Douglas when he made sure to re-sign Braxton Berrios, because if we let Berrios walk in free agency, it might have been the worst deal in the world. But at the same time, you don't want to give away a weapon that has so much chemistry with Zach Wilson. And I'll argue that if there's one player on the Jets right now that has the most chemistry with Zach Wilson, it's Braxton Berrios. And the reason for that is because Braxton Berrios was healthy at the end of the season. Do you guys remember when Zach Wilson played his best ball last year at the end of the season? Elijah Moore wasn't healthy. Corey Davis wasn't healthy. Braxton Berrios was his number one receiver. Now, that tells you the injuries that we suffered last year. I don't expect Braxton to be the number one guy this year, but what I'm trying to say is Zach Wilson really relied on Braxton Berrios, and Berrios was there every single time his name was called. He rarely dropped the ball. Third and short, he picked up the first down. He's just a guy that Zach Wilson, and not to mention their off-the-field connection. They're always hanging out. They're going to restaurants together, concerts, you name it. Zach Wilson and Braxton Berrios have a really good connection, and I feel like that's going to be a connection that's going to be fun to watch this season. Now, when it comes to the other wide receiver, that's probably a big-time name when it comes to Jets fans, whether you're on this side or that side, that's Denzel Mims. Denzel Mims, this is a pivotal year for him. Entering year number 3, every single player that gets drafted by the New York Jets, or in general, I feel like it's a 3-year window to prove your worth in the NFL. And I've heard Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas all say that they give their draft picks 3 years to prove themselves. They're not going to decide if you're a bust or not after 1 year or even 2 years. They're going to give you that third year. And that is a perfect example of Denzel Mims, because Denzel Mims showed flashes in his rookie season when Joe Flacco steps in, because Denzel didn't really have a connection with Sam. So we saw some potential in his rookie season for Denzel Mims that got us a lot of excitement heading into year number 2. And then unfortunately for Denzel Mims, he gets food poisoning last year, unable to go through OTAs. He's behind in the depth chart, needs to understand the playbook. He's behind everything. And then he's buried in the depth chart. We hear a lot of stuff in the media that the coaching staff doesn't believe in him last year. And all the fans are like, what? Play Mims, play Mims. And then Mims gets his opportunity and he fumbles his chance. He drops a wide open touchdown. He has a bunch of, pre-snap penalties. He just doesn't look like the guy that we thought that we were getting. Now, fast forward to right this moment, Denzel Mims, his first opportunity to go into the same system. He doesn't have to learn a brand new playbook. This is the first time in his career with the Jets that's a factor. He's also the first time in his career where he's healthy going into OTAs. He's participated in all OTAs. That is so important that a lot of people do not factor in. He's in great shape. His lower half is intact. So I feel like this is a really important season for Denzel Mims. Honestly, a make or break season. So what's your expectations for Denzel in year number 3 if his name is called?
I think it's hopeful. I think that's the term I'd use for him. Is I really was so excited when we drafted him. So the potential, and you saw everything that he did in college, and you saw like the little glimpses of it his rookie year, and then you go into like last year, and like you said, the food poisoning. You draft Elijah Moore higher than him. You bring in Keelan Cole and Corey Davis. So it's almost like, does this regime believe in Denzel Mims at this point? And the whole season, it felt like Denzel was kind of in his own head. And I think that goes back to those OTAs that he missed last offseason. So him coming in, being healthy, working on his lower body, this is make or break. He wants to have an NFL career. This is the season to do it. You got a young quarterback. You got a young wide receiver room. You can make an impact real quick this offseason. And I think for the Jets, I don't want to say they're clearly not banking on him being the guy. They brought back Braxton Berrios. You had Corey Davis on a multi-year deal. You drafted Elijah Moore. You draft Garrett Wilson really high in the draft. So for me, I think the Jets are looking at this as hey, anything we get out of him is good. If he shows enough, maybe we get a trade asset out of it. But ideally, this guy is a strong player and contributor moving forward with this young team and gives us a lot of depth because he has that type of potential and he has that type of 4.3 speed to really, be a different kind of wide receiver for us.
He has every single physical trait you want in an outside receiver. I think for him, it's all mental, and that comes with learning the playbook, knowing where he needs to be, knowing all positions on the field, knowing his routes, having good connection with the quarterback. I think those are the things he needs to work on because all of his physical traits he has is a prototypical wide receiver in this league. So to finish off the video, Ryan, I want to give you some rapid fire questions about the wide receiver room. If there's the biggest X factor on this in this group that you feel like is he needs to have a big season in order for this entire wide receiver room to click, who would that be?
It's Elijah Moore for me. That guy's such a lethal weapon. If he can take the top off of defenses and really show some of the Tyreek Hill-esque maneuverability and routes and threats to defenses, I think that kind of unlocks the tight ends. It opens up more opportunities in the run game. I think Elijah Moore is that X factor.
Elijah Moore is going to be the first bona fide star on the New York Jets. I'm saying that bull take here on Jets media to the point where Elijah Moore is looked at not only by Jets fans, but NFL fans around the world are going to look at the Jets and say, wow, that kid Elijah Moore, he's cool. I want his jersey. I want to draft him in fantasy. He's a good football player. Like, I genuinely believe there's just star potential written all over him. When I met him in person and I got to speak to Elijah Moore, he just had such an aura to him, such a personality, such a feel to him. Like, wow, he really gets it. Not only does he have all the physical traits, but he's really smart up here. We talk about what Mims struggles with the mental aspect of the game. I feel like Elijah Moore mastered the mental aspect of the game. He's only get better and better. So if there's a player on the wide receiver position, Ryan, that you feel like is the most underrated or the most underappreciated, who would it be?
Underappreciated. It's going to sound weird, but I think I'm going to go Corey Davis here. And I think
Great
his
answer.
veteran, it's a little odd because I wanted to go Berrios, but I think Davis has kind of gotten such a bad rap with some of the drops and the injury. Like, he's a good football player. We got to see a lot of really good things out of him early in the season, and Zach trusted him. So I think seeing year 2 with him, not being the focal point, but being able to kind of just play his game. We saw him at his best when he had, Brown with him down in Tennessee, and he was able to kind of be that second fiddle. And I think that's a comfort level that he's going to be able to enjoy this year. So I think Corey Davis is sort of the underappreciated guy.
I agree. I feel like Jets fans are going to start to appreciate the value that Corey Davis is going to bring this year. Remember, if he did not get hurt last season, guess what? He would have well over 1,000 yards if you look at the stats, because he was on pace for like 11 or 1,200 yards if you look at the numbers if he did not get injured. So, Ryan, if there's actually my biggest X factor before I ask you a question, I just want to say briefly, that's Braxton Berrios. I feel like, or more underrated, should I say. We already did the X factor. The most underappreciated player, in my opinion, is Braxton Berrios, just because of the way he was utilized in the system last year as a gadget piece that can do the end arounds, can do all these cool little things. He's going to be so involved in this offense, and Jets fans are going to really be happy that we re-signed him, because he's a guy that he's going to be a long-term Jet, and I'm so happy he's here. So he's definitely the most underappreciated, underrated guy, even though Jets fans love him. I'm not saying he's a guy that Jets fans don't like. I feel like he's a fan favorite, so I'm happy that he's a fan favorite. I just feel like from the outside looking in, not really from Jets fans, from like NFL fans looking at the Jets, they're not looking at Braxton Berrios as a threat. Jets fans know that Berrios is a threat, but other fan bases looking at the Jets, or other teams rather, are not going to think Braxton Berrios is anything to be scared of. Watch out. Braxton Berrios is coming. So, Ryan, my last question I have for you is, if there's any concerns with this wide receiver room, what would they be?
Maybe just uncertainty, because Corey Davis is still kind of the most proven wide receiver in this room, and he still sort of has some of those question marks about him. And then I think you look at Denzel Mims, he's a big question mark. Elijah Moore, is he going to take that next step? Garrett Wilson, rookie, is he going to be, the number one wide receiver or a top option for our quarterback? And then I think you look at Braxton Berrios, and you feel like, you kind of know his role, and you kind of know the connection he and Zach Wilson had last year. But I still feel like there's a lot of hope. It's a lot of, okay, we think this is going to be really good. There's a lot of potential. I think hope and potential are probably the two words I'd use to describe this wide receiver room. And I think it's a good thing. We haven't had a hope and a prayer at wide receiver in what feels like, half a decade or so.
No, it's true, because all the excitement that we've been talking about this entire video about the wide receivers is all projections, right? There's no proof that any of these players are going to do what we're saying, right? Elijah Moore has to stay healthy. Garrett Wilson has to live up to the 10th overall pick potential. Corey Davis has to have a bounce back season and stay on the field. Braxton Berrios needs to have a similar season to last year. Denzel Mims, he needs to do something in year number 3. So it's all really projection. So that's definitely a really good point that you bring up. So let's hope that they live up to the potential. There's no doubt that you look at this roster, at this position on paper, we have talent. So it's all up to Zach Wilson and these wide receivers to live up to their potential. Ryan, it was great to have you on the show, my man, breaking down the wide receiver position. It was a pleasure. Anything you'd like to say before we end off the video, my man?
Dude, thank you so much for having me on. I really love talking Jets with you. I love this, and I can't wait for this season to start. I'm really excited for week 1. I know you're excited for week 1 as well. So I'm looking forward to talking some Jets with you in person.
Week 1 is going to be crazy. Elijah Moore will have 2 touchdowns, 8 receptions, 98 yards. That does it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys stayed until the end of the video, comment down below a Jet emoji so we know you stayed all the way to the end of this really long 26-minute video. That would be awesome. Do not forget to like the video if you guys enjoyed. And of course, please subscribe to my guy Ryan down below in the description if you're not subscribed already. That does it for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Let's go Jets. Peace out.